that you see. So just a quick reminder starting off. So Scale Back, Scale Back Give Back is a two-part process. Scale Back will end the week of March 13th. So submit your final weight for Scale Back by March 17th. And you can do this two ways. You can submit it online using the link that will come to your email. If you didn't get an initial weight email, just shoot me a quick email. My email will be at the end, and I'll get you added to that list. But you can also turn in your paper tracker with your initial weight and final weight on it. You can staple that shut and give it to your LivSmart ambassador. If you're a spouse, then you can give that to your spouse to give to the ambassador. But really the best, most secure way of submitting your weight is to do it online. But anybody that submits a weight to us by March 17th will be eligible for a reusable grocery tote. So we'll be giving those out, shipping those out all across the country in April. So that will be in store, which is exciting. Okay, so today we're going to go through kind of the ups, downs, and plateaus that come along with a weight loss and really a health journey. And that's what this is. This is a journey. This is not a diet, a short-term thing. This is more of a lifestyle. So the things we're going to talk about that go into maintaining your momentum are really getting back on track when you've seen a setback or you kind of got off the wagon for a minute. Breaking through a plateau, because that does happen. Our progress does seem to stall a little bit. Staying motivated towards your goal, and then celebrating success and moving forward. So these are the four things that we're going to go through, and just some tips and guidance that I can give you along the way. So I love this little graphic about success. So especially when we're watching someone else see success, or if they're at the end of their journey and they've had success, we think it's a simple process. We think it's just only going to be smooth sailing, whereas in reality, it's messy. It is full of setbacks and plateaus, and you kind of feel like you're running in circles sometimes. But the whole point of this is just to keep putting your best foot forward, and in the end, you will see success. And so when you do get off track, it's really important to get back on track. And as you know, that's sometimes the hardest part of a journey, is starting it or having to restart it. So when you've seen a little setback, first you want to kind of refocus and figure out if your priorities are in the place they need to be in order to see success. So if reaching your goal isn't at the top of your list of priorities, then you're probably not going to meet your goal because you've got other things that are getting in the way. So shift things around and start making time for your health and for your goal. Learn from setbacks. So really take a look at what got you off track. Was it something in your life that was stressful? Or was it an event that happened, maybe a vacation? That can tend to get people off track. So take a look at what took priority over your goal, and that way you can identify the reason for the setback and then plan for when the situation arises again. So life is not smooth, as all of us know. Life likes to throw us curveballs, but we can be more prepared for them and not make the same mistakes that we did in the past. Remember your motivation. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but why do you want to reach the goal? Again, we're hyper-focused on weight for Scale Back, but it's really not the number on the scale that really motivates us. It's more of how we feel, or the energy that we're going to have, or the fact that we can play with our kids or grandkids in the yard. So really take a look at that motivation. Sometimes that gets lost in the day-to-day, either work or just life. We can forget our motivation. So write down your motivation and put it somewhere that you see often. And this could even be a picture. You know, I like the idea of putting a picture of a time in my life where I looked great, you know, maybe on the refrigerator or in the bathroom mirror, and that way I'm working towards that. Some people like to put that picture that you really hate to even look at up, and that's a motivator for them to move away from that. But I like the idea of working towards something better. So even if you've got a picture when you looked and felt great and you seemed really happy, that's always a good motivator. And then start with the basics or restart with the basics. So last webinar, we talked about what living your healthiest day looks like. And it's some of those simple things you do all day long that will really help get you to your goal. And so when you're starting or getting back on track, start with some of those basic things like eating breakfast or drinking water or walking more. Some of those things that will really help you feel better. And then forget perfection. So none of us are perfect, and don't let imperfection stop you. So we all make mistakes and missteps, but just always put your best foot forward. And really, if you can ditch the perfection mindset, then you'll be less likely to get off track because things don't go perfectly. So now that we've gotten back on track and we're doing really good, sometimes we do see a plateau in our weight loss or our success that we're seeing. And it's important to understand why there's a plateau and really how you can break through it. So really a plateau it's more than just not seeing movement on the scale for a few days. It's really when you feel like your progress has been stalled for a week or two or more. That would be a plateau. And really a plateau is not a bad thing. So your body is constantly in survival mode. So let's think about if you were dropped off on a deserted island and you were like scrounging for food and you were having to do a lot of walking around and exercise. It would be a good thing that your body adapted to those behaviors, and really, otherwise you would just wither away to nothing. So if you think about the same thing, our body is constantly in survival mode. So when we increase our exercise or we cut down on the amount of food that we're giving our body, it needs to adapt in order to survive. And the problem is sometimes we're going to be just fine and we're going to survive. We would just like to survive, 20 pounds lighter. But we have to keep in mind kind of the mechanisms that our body works with. So a weight loss plateau is nothing more than adaptation. It's your body getting used to what you've done. So when you think about it that way, breaking through a plateau, it makes a little bit more sense the way that you really need to break through it. So the first thing, make sure that you're not just measuring your weight, because you may see a stall in the pounds coming off, but it could be that you're losing inches or you're getting more energy or you're having to tighten up your belt. Those things are still positive progress. It's just not the one thing that we're measuring during scale back. So think about the other things that are measurable that you can keep up with. A great example of this is when you get your Live Smart blood work done this summer. If you've really been doing great over the past 3-6 months, we should see a difference in some of the blood sugar numbers or the cholesterol numbers or your waist measurement when you do your summer screening. So that's why that screening is so helpful, because you can actually measure internal things that are going on that are a result of the external things you're working on. So that's really exciting, honestly. So second, evaluate your intake. Don't always assume that you need to eat less. So the best way to evaluate your intake and kind of figure out what's going on is to do a food journal. And I know that does not sound fun, but for 2 weeks, so that's 2 weekends and 2 weekdays, or sets of weekdays, write down everything that goes in your mouth. So 3 things usually happen with a food journal, or can happen. So first, when you have to write down everything you're eating, you subconsciously start to change and make better decisions, which is great. Next, after you've written down 2 weeks, you may be able to identify some areas of improvement. Maybe you realize you're not getting your fruits and vegetables, or you're drinking too many sugar-sweetened beverages. So that's always a good, idea just for you to be able to glance over. And then lastly, if you're not able to identify things that, need to improve, then you've got Live Smart dietitians that can do that. So we can take a look at your food journal and we can give you some pointers. And we're not going to tear it apart, I promise. We're normal people too. We eat normal things. So, but it's always a good idea to have a second set of eyes on things. So after you've evaluated your intake, you can adjust your calorie intake. And again, like I said, it's not always just cutting out calories. Your metabolism changes as your weight does. So, and your calorie needs change as well. So sometimes you may need to eat less, especially if you've lost a significant amount of weight, just because your body doesn't need as much energy to move your body throughout the day. But sometimes you need to eat more because the exercise that you're doing is so vigorous, your body actually does need more calories to sustain itself. So if you're not sure what to do with your calorie intake, like I said, first measure it, maybe with a food journal, and then talk to your Live Smart dietitian and we can give you some recommendations. So next, identify inconsistency. So for example, your weekdays may be perfect, but your weekends are a disaster. And I hear that a lot. Weekends are tough for everybody. Or it may be a particular meal that's throwing you off. So it may be that your breakfast is just never on point, but everything else is. So the goal is to aim for consistency really across the board and use the 80-20 rule. So make 80% of what you put in your mouth healthy, nourishing food. And then 20% is for those special occasions, those birthday parties, that football game. It's not an all day, getting off track. It's more of just a meal or a serving of food. But don't aim for perfection again. Use that 80-20 balance. So change up your exercise regimen. So, this may be adding intervals to your walking, maybe a little bit higher intensity to your cardio. You may want to change out the machine that you're working on. You might always do the elliptical, but it might be nice to throw the bike in there. Or even add in a new class if you go to a gym, especially something like yoga, where you can really do a low impact, low intensity class, but it's still great for your body to get those muscles, warm and loose and limber. So your body needs to be challenged. That's how we keep it from adaptation. So continue to change the exercise that you're doing so that your body is always guessing. And then lastly, address other factors that are standing in the way. So again, if you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it a million times. This may be stress, sleep. You may need some more support in your circle for helping you reach those goals. But then also address any underlying conditions that are going on. So a sleep condition or a thyroid condition or a food sensitivity. Those things can stand in the way too and make it look like you're plateauing. So just reevaluate and address things as needed. So after we've broken through our plateau, sometimes we've got to work on maintaining our motivation at the same time. So we can actively do things that help our motivation last longer. Sometimes that's one area that we don't really focus on, and that's why we run out of motivation. So in order to maintain your motivation, write down the reasons why you're on this journey. And this is what I said previously. Keep these reasons visible. This may be on your refrigerator, your computer screen, your car dashboard, your bathroom mirror, even inside your wallet. If you opened up your wallet to pay for food and you saw those reasons, you might rethink some of those decisions. So really keep those visible and on the forefront of your mind. Like I said previously, go beyond the scale. So motivation can start to wane when we don't see the numbers on the scale move as quickly as we'd like. So don't get discouraged, but have other things that you can measure to see improvement on. Don't rely on willpower. So this is something we all try to do, but think of willpower like a muscle. It will wear out. You cannot muscle your way through a lifestyle change. Our muscles get tired and fatigued, and same with our willpower. So instead, you really have to ingrain yourself with new healthy habits, and you can still use willpower every now and then, but just let that muscle rest and let your healthy habits take over. So like I said before, kind of going along with the tracking behaviors on a regular basis can really give you some positive feedback and keep your motivation going. So for myself, I wear a fitness tracker, and twice a day I check my sleep in the morning and I check my steps at the end of the day. And it really is some positive reinforcement when I see some of the behaviors that I'm really working on start to pay off, where, you know, in my sleep quality or in the amount of steps that I'm getting in my day. And you don't have to have a fitness tracker to make this work. There are some free apps on smartphones or even just apps online on the computer that you can put information into, and it'll generate reports for you and also give you some encouragement when you need it. So those tracking devices can be really helpful in stoking your motivation day by day. And then lastly, be patient and realistic. So this one's really hard because when you're trying hard on eating right and exercise, you want to see it pay off. And a lot of times I watch my clients get frustrated because things aren't going as quick as they want them to. So part of, you know, my job is to remind people that it does take time, you know, especially when dealing with weight. That weight did not come on overnight, and it's not going to come off that way either. So just trying to be patient, cut yourself some slack, and know that you're in this for the long run, and this is not just short-term thing. Okay, so now all of our work has paid off, and it's time to celebrate success. And this is really important because you really do need to give yourself a pat on the back when you've done some great things for your health and for your life. And one of the biggest things that I can encourage people is not to wait until the end of their journey. So really set small goals and celebrate success along the way. So this may be a weekly fitness goal. It may be a size in clothing that you're trying to reach. It may be moving your belt down a notch. I mean, all of the small successes are worth celebrating. So it really is, it's good to be positive and encouraging to yourself when you've seen some success. Now, one of the important things is to use non-food rewards when you're celebrating. You know, so much of really most cultures, but definitely the American culture, is to celebrate things with food. I mean, cake and parties, and I mean, everything we celebrate with food. So, you know, this may be buying a new workout top or getting a pedicure. Find a healthy reward that you enjoy, and you can condition your body and mind not to reach for food when you're celebrating. And this is a good habit just to have in general. You know, you don't have to celebrate with sweets for everything. And we do the same thing when we're sad. We eat too. So it's just that whole emotional eating part of it. But go ahead and identify the rewards you're going to use when you've met that goal. Celebrate with someone. So this may be your spouse or your friend or another accountability partner. Find someone that will help you celebrate the small and the larger successes, because that's really nice when you hear that external, you know, positive feedback. Remind yourself often. So on the days when your motivation is low, remind yourself of all the success you've seen. So especially when you start a journey on a really good foot and you may see 2 or 3 pounds weight loss in the first week. That next week when you don't see a lot of weight loss, you're kind of discouraged. And you're like, what's going on? But remind yourself of the success you've seen and how far you've come, again, whether that's small or large. And then once you meet a goal, set a new goal. So congratulations on meeting that goal. Now it's time to work on the next challenge. So this may be a new fitness goal. It may be getting back into your skinny jeans, or it could just be keeping the weight off for good this time. You know, you've worked so hard to get the weight off. I don't want you to ever have to do it again. I want you to maintain, and that in and of itself is a challenge. So that may be the next goal, is to just maintain the progress that you've seen. And going off of that, maintain. So there's nothing worse than backsliding, and we've all done it. And whether it comes, you know, in regards to our health or any other part of our life, you know, going the wrong direction is never a positive thing. So small setbacks happen, and we talked previously about what to do when that does happen, but don't underestimate the importance of challenging yourself to maintain your success. Working on a goal keeps you moving forward. When you're just staying still, it's so easy to go backwards. So continue to move forward in everything that you do. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal, but it's the courage to continue that counts. And I just loved this quote. I thought, you know, we're not working towards an end goal that's stagnant. You know, once we hit that weight goal, we have to continue to move forward. And that's really, it does take courage to do that. So I really liked this. I'm probably going to print this out and be looking at this more often. So really the takeaways from today: get back on track quickly. The faster, the better, just because you're less likely to continue to slip. Break through plateaus with change. Break up that adaptation. Maintain your motivation and actively maintain it. Do things that will continue to maintain your motivation often. And then celebrate success, small or large. You know, you're doing great by putting in effort that really is an investment in your health in the long term. So celebrate that. Okay, so just a last little reminder. You know, I talked about in the beginning how our way out for Scale Back will be the week of March 13th. So after Scale Back, we're not done. And that's the great news, is you can continue to work on your goals, or you can maintain the success that you've seen. So Give Back, the second part of the program, will go from the middle of March to September 30th. So you have that time to continue or maintain. Now remember, for every pound that you lose and successfully maintain through September 30th, O and I will donate a pound of food to a food bank in your local area. So this is not just Birmingham where we're located. This is in your community, whether that's California or Kansas. I mean, all over the place we'll be giving to local food banks. So you're really going to be making a difference not only in your health, but in somebody else's life. So that's really encouraging. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Here's all my contact information. I'm so glad that y'all were able to join me today for this final session in the Scale Back webinar series. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or you can visit our website for some additional information. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask or need anything from us? Okay, well, it's a quiet bunch, but like I said, let me know if you need anything, and we will connect soon. Thanks again for joining us.